Good evening, this is the Oscar Expert here with Brother Bro, and it's time for Best Director and Best Screenplay predictions.
You know, we already talked about Best Picture, so it's going to give a lot of context to the shit we say here.
So if you haven't watched that video, fuck you. Best Director,
Damn, you're really
can't
gonna do it, huh?
have Spielberg at number one anymore. I can't do it. I don't see a building behind him. The guy ain't won a single Critics Group Award, and critics
It's not always that important, but okay.
for director. So I actually took it upon myself to look up whether or not it really does matter who's sweeping with critics groups when it comes to Best Director. And the answer is, it kind of does. Since 2010, the Best Director sweeper with critics groups wins the Oscar 75% of the time. It's actually more correlative even than how much critics groups Best Picture picks correlate with the Best Picture Oscar winners. And it is pretty rare that if Spielberg was going to win director, that he's just not winning any critics groups, which is not to say that things couldn't turn around. I remember Inarritu for The Revenant was not winning very many critics groups. Tom Hooper wasn't winning many critics groups, but other than them, it usually is pretty evident who is contending by this time in the year.
The category really is separated, though, from Best Picture these days, in that it's Best Achievement in Directing. I don't know even if you like the movie a lot, if you would say Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, that is the achievement in directing that I think is Oscar worthy.
Usually,
I mean, he's won for movies that I think is very well deserved, but this just doesn't feel like his greatest achievement in directing. It was a very good movie for him.
yeah, it's not like Saving Private Ryan, Schindler's List. Like, those are the movies he won directing Oscars for.
Yeah.
This is just like personal narrative for the guy. Like, that is not usually what wins you Best Director. It kind of worked for The Departed, but that movie won Best Picture. It kind of worked for The Shape of Water.
The Departed, he was super overdue for the Best Director.
Yeah, that's true. And it kind of worked for The Shape of Water, but that movie also was the most nominated, technically astonishing, and it won Best Picture. Is The Fabelmans the most technically astonishing movie of the year? It's well made, it's well crafted, it's a well directed movie. But the thing people are pointing to is, oh, they're not gonna let Spielberg go empty-handed for the film he made about himself and his childhood. It's like, why not? I mean, I guess Kenneth Branagh won screenplay, but Kenneth Branagh wasn't competing against the Banshees of Inisherin.
Well, I guess it's true. Usually, if you make a film about your childhood, you don't go home empty-handed.
I mean, why? That's not
even
gonna be
so.
a rule every
Even
time.
so.
And Spielberg's won before. Kenneth Branagh had so many nominations, and he never won. I'm not quite seeing how Spielberg is so strong and undeniable in director, and I feel like he would need to seem like that. He hasn't won a single Critics Award. I guess Spielberg won MBR, but like, okay, big deal. But who's winning director? Daniels are winning director. Daniels are winning more directing awards than picture awards. What does that say to you? When places give Banshees Best Picture, they give Everything Everywhere Best Director.
I think that's a big deal.
That's what's happening right now. If the movie's a frontrunner, it obviously makes some sense to be in contention for director, but also, you know, we shouldn't forget, this is a ambitious movie. The Daniels are highly inventive. People in the beginning of the year were like, oh, it'll get screenplay, but it might not make it in director. And it's like, how is that not a director movie? And now we're seeing that, yeah, it's a director movie. People want to give this movie director.
At this point, I'm willing to consider whether Everything Everywhere loses screenplay to Banshees and gets director picture. Like, I just don't see like another film that is really strong in director. And if this is the front runner, you can't say it's the front runner and it also won't win director. And there's a lot to look at this and say, okay, this is an achievement because X, Y, and Z. They have absolutely done filmmaking things in this movie that other people did not do. They were extremely economic with their budget and how they used visual effects. They blended many genres. They have their own style and unique way of doing things. There's a lot that makes this film like a big directing achievement, I think. The whole thing is a high wire act. Like, I wonder if even it's easier for people who don't like the movie to vote for it in director because they just recognize like it's an achievement.
I thought maybe at first, oh, they could Bong Joon-ho it, like at the last minute they start running director, but it might be more than that. Like, they might actually take bigger awards.
But I guess, you know, Spielberg is still definitely a number two. Like you said.
Well,
he could win Golden Globe.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to win Director or Critics' Choice. No.
I do think that James Cameron or Steven Spielberg could win Globe or DGA.
Yeah.
I think they
weirdly,
could get
I guess
competitive there.
I think James Cameron could maybe do it.
James Cameron made a film that, in a way, fits Best Director better than The Fabelmans. I mean, it's James Cameron's baby. that he's been giving a long-ass fucking pregnancy to.
Yeah, he's been incubating that fucking fetus for so long. You know, but that's kind of funny because, like, surprisingly, he can't really come up with a story that's too different from the first one. If Cameron starts to win director awards, it really makes me think, like, oh, Spielberg is weak. And I also do not think Cameron will win director at the Academy Awards. I just don't. I don't even feel sure about him getting a nomination there. If he starts to win, I'm just going to think more that it's not going to Spielberg and that they're just clamoring for alternatives and that eventually Daniels would just win.
You know what makes sense about the Daniels too is that this award is often most directing, but in a way Daniels or Avatar probably makes sense for the most directed film.
But the interesting thing is it might be a tight director race. It would be weird if they swept. That would be weird.
You know, and we thought for a long time that Everything Everywhere wouldn't win director even if it won Best Picture. And now, you're right, there's a world where it's stronger here than it is for screenplay. But again, that's a little bit going off of just critics group logic, and that may not play out after all. Number 3, Martin McDonagh. Why is he number 3 when he got snubbed for 3 billboards and that was like a top 3 contender as well? This is different, folks. First of all, it's not like if he continues being a respected filmmaker, they're just going to snub him every single time. Banshees has none of the issues that people have with 3 billboards. Even people who hated 3 billboards, who are ready to trash this guy, came out of Banshees like, oh shit, that was really good. He is number 3 in terms of the most nominated with critics groups. I think it'll happen for this movie. People respect him on another level. Todd Field, he didn't get a Golden Globe. I don't really care. Paul Thomas Anderson, Yorgos Lanthimos, like, I think he could be that kind of person where he could miss Golden Globe, maybe even DGA, and still get the Oscar nomination because that's just the kind of thing that the Academy would like to do.
Tar was just a really strongly directed film, and it's the exact kind of thing that the Academy Awards directors branch love to go after. They like to single out films like this, where it's a clear autorial vision. This director's been in the game for a while. It would also be kind of weak. It would feel weak if he didn't show up here in director at the Academy Awards. They'll snub like a James Cameron for a Todd Field, and we know they snub thrillers sometimes and blockbusting achievements
like Inception and Dune.
Yeah, Dune did not get nominated, so I reserve the right to be skeptical that Cameron will get nominated, even though I think he'll get in a lot of places.
If James Cameron won the Golden Globe or something else, I would put him in, probably. If he won something, I would say, okay, that puts him in.
I might not even.
I would put him in if he was
over who?
Something. I don't know. Rajamouli? We'll see. Because Rajamouli is by no means locked in. He is number 6 in terms of most awarded director on the critics tally that I have.
Behind Sarah Polley, whose film doesn't make me super confident that she'll get nominated.
I think RR would go along director if it were to get picture. It would get both, I think.
Right, that's the thing.
And the fact that LA and New York put him as winner or runner-up, that was important.
That's big. Like, the director's branch tastes are more artful, and when Drive My Car got honored by those exact critics groups, they followed suit. And so I would actually think they would follow suit and put Rajamouli in for Best Director. And this year you look down the list and you're like, I don't think Decision to Lead's gonna be it. Yeah. I just don't think that's gonna be the movie.
And I wish it would be.
And this feels like this is the movie.
But James Cameron, I think he's gonna be in Gold Derby's top 5 at minimum, because he's gonna get DGA. Maybe he gets BAFTA too, I'm not really sure. But he's going to do well. Like, he's going to be, as I said, one of the top contenders at certain awards groups like DGA and Globe maybe. And that movie is an achievement in many ways. It's a technical marvel, and they like awarding those kind of movies and directors. So that's actually pretty tough to not have in the top 5. I'm not trying to deny him. I'm just predicting that he'll seem like he's getting nominated, and then we'll be snubbed. Sarah Polley. Sorry. The fact that she didn't make Globe... I mean, she made Critics' Choice, but it was
10.
And when they only nominated one actor, I don't think she would have made it in 5.
It's just obvious that Women Talking is not like a top contender, and it's being excluded from editing when the editing was actually strong. If people really liked it, it would be getting those nominations. Like, they're there. I don't know about director for Sarah Polley, even though she's very well respected, and maybe the director's branch could go for her and snub someone bigger. Maybe.
It did feel like this could be her time, because she is a well-respected filmmaker, and they could rebound her, like they could.
The director's branch, though, could like single her out and like that movie more than the rest of
I kind of agree, but there are other really strong contenders in this category. See everybody above her. Even Baz Luhrmann is getting nominations. over her.
Christ.
And it pains me. It pains me, but you know, I guess in some ways it makes sense that he is a pretty well-respected filmmaker too. And he might even get DGA. Like, it could be that disgusting. I think some people are going to keep Sarah Polley in because they just think that because it's 2022, this lineup must include a woman. Surely the director's branch will nominate a woman. I don't know what to say. Like, people did this in 2019 where they thought, surely Greta Gerwig. Like, this year, they'll put Greta Gerwig in. And the signs were there that she wasn't going to get the nomination. And, you know, we said, look, fellas, it's looking like Todd Phillips is going to get nominated, okay? Mm-hmm. And he did. If you look at the instances where women get nominated in Best Director, usually their movies are top 5, often like top 3 contenders. And Women Talking, like, you can't put up a robust argument that it is any higher than 7. I wish Park Chan-wook was getting nominated for Decision to Leave. He maybe still has a BAFTA nomination in him. The directing in this movie is insanely detailed, but I don't see it happening this year. Giselle for Babylon is sitting this one out. I think similar to how Adam McKay was sitting it out in director for Don't Look Up, even though he got nominated for Vice and The Big Short. This is just not as strong a contender.
I thought Joseph Kosinski could maybe take off, especially like in the way that Top Gun Maverick has absolutely been soaring in cinematography. I thought, like, okay, what if director kind of goes along with that? People are saying Top Gun Maverick is also a directing achievement. Like, it wouldn't have shocked me, but it's just not happening. And in a lineup of 10 directing nominees, a Critics' Choice, he could not get in. It was one of 2 movies in the Best Picture lineup of 11 that didn't get nominated for Best Director also.
People think he could rebound at DGA. With what you just said, I think that will not be at DGA.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I just don't see people, even when they love Top Gun Maverick, singling out the director.
It's because Tom Cruise
he
is
just
the face
hasn't.
of the movie. Gina Prince Bythewood, she's been making it into like lineups of 10, but isn't really looking like super duper strong. Ruben Östlund is also not looking too likely, even though earlier in the year it seemed like this could be, you know, his time. And Charlotte Wells for Aftersun. You know, maybe these bottom 2 are in contention for BAFTA nominations too, like the jury pulling them in. Maybe.
If Charlotte Wells got in, I would fucking scream.
Original screenplay. We have Everything Everywhere All at Once, even though Banshees is really strong. Like, Banshees is strong to the point where there are some places that are just handing out all the awards to Everything Everywhere, and then they are giving Banshees screenplay. And it kind of makes sense because the dialogue in Banshees is insane. And it's a really well-written script. It is an Oscar-worthy script in many ways. But when you look back to last year, you know, Power of the Dog was the best adapted screenplay of the year. And yet Coda won. Did Coda have better writing than Power of the Dog? Of course not. Of course not. But it still won because they just liked the movie. Same with Belfast, you know, winning. Just because the critics groups are doing something doesn't mean you just gotta go along with it. And if Everything Everywhere is winning Best Picture, I still think that makes it the strongest contender to win screenplay.
This is actually a race that I find really tough to call because Banshees almost feels like a film that's going to take screenplay no matter what, or that it could.
He also came really close to winning for 3 Billboards.
Also, the fact that he's probably going to be nominated for director also makes it more compelling to give him an Oscar. Since I would say he's like surely not going to win it in director.
Do you think that if Daniels are looking very likely to win director, that could make them even more likely to split it with Banshees and screenplay?
Maybe.
If it's like, well, they are going to win director.
Maybe, because they could say, oh, this is how we spread the love.
It would be kind of weird, though, because Everything Everywhere does seem like a movie where screenplay would go along with a Best Picture win. And it almost always does. Nomadland, Shape of Water, The Artist, like, they were not the most righty movies in a way.
But this has always felt like a righty movie, and a movie whose screenplay would be carrying it into the Best Picture win. We've been speculating that since the beginning, that the screenplay would be the vehicle that it could ride, as well as supporting actor. But it looks like the package for Everything Everywhere winning has changed quite a bit. You know, now that I think it could win director, at least one acting win. You know, does it need screenplay? Does it to win? I think Banshees might win screenplay. I actually have a really hard time saying one over the other. But I also feel, you know, maybe I'm biased right now because the critics are showering it in awards.
Yeah, I think Banshees still is going to have that problem where it's a little bit of a downer, which is not something the critics care about, but could be something that comes back later and is in fact a problem. People last year would not accept that could factor in for Power of the Dog. And at the end of the day, even with the 12 nominations, what came back to bite Power of the Dog was that it just was not feel good enough.
I don't know, predicting a sweep for Everything Everywhere, like it's going to have that level of passion. The screenplay and director and picture, it feels like a lot. and the actors. However, it did happen with Parasite that did win screenplay and director and picture.
The Fabelmans, it's just looking harder to see how that happens in a world where Banshees and Everything Everywhere are so goddamn strong. I mean, Tony Kushner, sure, he's overdue. Steven Spielberg has enough Oscars. Again, I don't really buy that, like, oh, but they have to give Spielberg an Oscar. It's like, but they don't. Like, he won. He's got multiple.
But if the Fabelmans starts to win awards for, director, or seems to be like really contending for the win in picture, I'm gonna say it's possible.
Yeah, but The Fabelmans has no wins in screenplay. Tar has a couple wins in screenplay so far. That's got to be pretty close to locked in. And 5 is actually tough. It might be Triangle of Sadness.
Mm-hmm. It might still be.
I would need to see it get BAFTA. If it didn't get BAFTA, I mean, what if Aftersun got BAFTA screenplay? Or could it be Babylon, which just gets in because it's like, oh, I guess they did want to nominate Babylon in screenplay. Okay.
I don't see Babylon happening in screenplay.
And no critics groups have even nominated it so far. They don't care.
I just don't feel confident about it. I feel like Triangle of Sadness absolutely deserves a screenplay nomination, especially if you're not going to give it Best Picture. Like, give it something.
They did nominate The Worst Person in the World last year.
Yeah, I can see Triangle of Sadness happening.
I actually really want Ruben Östlund to get an Oscar nomination for it too, and Dolly DeLeon getting in a Globe, like that was pretty strong. Again, we'll wait for BAFTA to see what that looks like, but I guess Aftersun is possible. The fact that got Critics' Choice, it's like, okay, maybe.
It's just surprisingly barren, like the 5th slot.
Nope is technically number 5 in terms of Critics' Group's nominations, but Critics' Choice didn't bite that movie at all.
Weird.
I kind of am done with that too.
Yeah, and then maybe it's like Elvis squeezes in there because it's doing well in picture.
Or like The Menu, honestly, not impossible. Adapted, Women Talking, still looking pretty good for the win, but...
Well, it's the most likely to get nominated, I think.
If Glass Onion got in Best Picture and got a decent haul overall, that could upset at WGA and take the award.
I mean, what if it got in over Women Talking? Then you'd have to say...
Oh, yeah. Well, that, yeah.
But I don't know.
I have trouble imagining that reality right now, but I actually don't think Glass Onion's impossible to win. But Women Talking, I mean, if that doesn't win screenplay, like, if that doesn't win adapted screenplay, and you give the Oscar to Sarah Polley for her achievement, you're already snubbing her in director, okay? You may as well give it her in screenplay.
That's going to be a great win. It's very, I think it's just very well deserved.
I would be very disappointed if that did not win.
Yeah.
And so far, critics groups are kind of behind that too. She Said is looking pretty good for the nomination. It could be a low nomination. It wouldn't matter. It would still get it. This category is thin enough where you can do
just
that.
Like Critics' Choice, low nomination.
And even The Whale. Some people think that The Whale will get snubbed here because The Passion's dying. I think that it will inch up a little bit leading into awards, and it'll keep in the screenplay conversation. And as we have it right now, it's actually doing exactly as well as She Said with critics groups. That's not really looking that weak in screenplay, even though most people's problem with the movie is like with the writing feeling stagey or a little weird at points. Like, it's still kind of getting in.
Yeah, but that's just because this category is like kind of barren.
Living getting Critics' Choice made me go, okay, fine. Bill Nighy's really in there. I don't know, maybe Living's number 4 for screenplay, honestly.
Yeah, maybe.
You could do that. You could say that.
I would like if Pinocchio got in. I really would. I think it's worthy.
Pinocchio's got some critics groups noms, but
yeah,
I don't really see it without the movie getting in Best Picture.
Yeah. Top Gun Maverick didn't take off like we thought it might, where, people are loving the movie. They're even giving it cinematography wins.
That movie would need to be like a top 2 contender to get screenplay. There's really no reason to give it screenplay unless it's one of the very top contenders.
I don't agree that there's no reason to give it screenplay. I think there's just like a perception of that it's a blockbuster and that the writing like somehow got overshadowed by other things, and that's not what makes the movie good. But I kind of disagree there. Like, I think Top Gun Maverick was a lot stronger than it needed to be. I don't think it'd be like undeserving if you're gonna love that movie. You're gonna shower in awards.
White Noise, I think, is not looking good. I've always thought it wouldn't look good because the movie just isn't well liked enough, and it's a little bit weird. I don't think that the writers branch is gonna name check Noah Baumbach. Like, yeah, that's kind of a weird argument, and they don't usually seem to do that. They seem to go with whatever is like strong in Best Picture and stuff.
Avatar, I feel like people don't care about the writing in the movie. They just do not care. I don't think it's gonna single out for that.
I think Bones and All is kind of an outside shot, but it
Maybe
did
that
miss
would
Critics'
be
Choice.
excellent. That'd be like an excellent surprise. I mean, Critics' Choice were pretty lame and they didn't nominate it. What was up with that? They put Living in there.
And those are our predictions for Best Director and Screenplay categories. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Will you win an Oscar for your thoughtfully written comments?